Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, passion for excellence, and by Dow Automotive Systems, innovations for clean powertrain solutions.
It's Autoline Daily for March 23rd, and here's what's happening in the global automotive industry. Starting next year, the United States will no longer have a monopoly on satellite navigation. That's because China is going to make its own GPS system called Beidou available for civilian use, especially for navigation in cars. Right now, China has 7 satellites in its system, but it wants 35 satellites by 2020 to fully challenge the U.S. GPS system. The nav systems that use Beidou are said to be cheaper than GPS ones. Beidou is not to be confused with the most popular internet search engine in China, known as Baidu. Bob King is stirring the pot again. The UAW president is calling Alan Mulally out on his recent stock bonus of nearly $57 million. King says Mulally is a great CEO, but calls that sum outrageous, adding he doesn't think any human being in the world deserves that much money. King also called the sum morally wrong and said it'll help the UAW get a better deal when it negotiates a new contract later this year. And you know what? He's right. That is going to help the union at the bargaining table. After a long drought, Chrysler's finally getting some competitive products to sell, and Bloomberg reports the company is pushing its U.S. stores, its dealers, to hire more sales and service workers. It wants to increase vehicle sales 32% this year. It's working with its 2,300 dealers to extend hours and add quick lube services. Last year, Chrysler's sales staff fell 10%, but its competitors increased theirs. Its service advisors also generated significantly less cash per month than rivals at GM or Toyota. This seems like a pretty ambitious goal, but it's still early in the year, so anything is possible. Even though Ford has turned things around in the U.S. market, it still lags behind its competitors in Asia. That's why the company announced it will introduce 8 new models into Southeast Asia over the next 5 years. The company did not say what models it will introduce, but Reuters reports that even though Ford sales in the region have grown 175% this year, it still has less than 2% of the ASEAN and Thai markets. Ford says it will use its manufacturing base in Thailand as its hub for expanding into the ASEAN markets, and an interesting tidbit in this article says Indonesia will soon pass Thailand in sales, and Thailand is the largest market in that region. General Motors is suing Allied Systems, a Georgia-based car hauling company, accusing it of holding over 1,700 of its vehicles hostage, and they're worth nearly $47 million. According to the Detroit News, the dispute started when Allied wanted to charge GM more for its services after it failed to get wage concessions from the Teamsters Union. Obviously, GM said no, so Allied stopped delivering the vehicles and will not return them. The vehicles were on the way to dealerships, and GM says a number of them have already been purchased by customers. In the meantime, GM's hired other companies to transport its vehicles. And it's not just GM. Chrysler is suing Canadian-based Allied Holdings to get it to return 700 of its vehicles that it's holding on to. Chrysler, too, has hired other companies to transport its vehicles. Coming up next, it's time for You Said It.
Reducing exhaust emissions, aerified diesel particulate filters, high filtration, low back pressure, small package size, excellent durability. DowAerified.com.
And now it's time for some of your feedback. HTG wants to know, when Mark Roy said he was concerned about mass efficiency in the Cadillac, it wasn't obvious to me he meant lighter car better. What is mass efficiency? To me, mass efficiency means that for a given size vehicle and its duty cycle, what's the weight of the vehicle and how does it compare to others in its class? TP 1943 weighed in on the story of the Detroit News car critic Scott Burgess quitting when they softened down his critique of the Chrysler 200 after an advertiser complained. But the News later apologized, and that's why TP 1943 says, I'm impressed the Detroit News stepped up. I sure hope Scott returns to his job and continues with his honest opinions. Boy, I couldn't agree more. And C-Tech says, I wish they would consider you for Top Gear. God knows they could use some auto expertise and entertainment. Good luck. Baja Busta saw our report on the new Audi A6 and says, I like family design cues, but come on, Audi. All three of your sedans, 4, 6, 8, look far too similar. But Vandred Party says Audi is easily one of the best car companies in the world. Audi FTW, which means for the win. Doc Wolf has some good insight on Nissan's commercial vans. He says, Nissan's biggest problem may be the same one Toyota has with the Tundra, service turnaround. The Tundra failed to catch on as a serious work truck because Toyota service centers would not service the truck as quickly as Ford, Chevy GMC, and Ram centers will. If the truck needs work today, I want it done before I need it again tomorrow. If Nissan can't deal with that, the NV vans and trucks will fail to make a real dent in the commercial van market. And Jets Corp has a fascinating take on sulfur and gasoline and two-stroke engines. He writes, sulfur and the resulting NOx emissions with lean burn engines are what killed Chrysler's two-stroke engine they were going to put in the original Neon. Too bad. It could have been pretty awesome. Today, outboard motor manufacturers are making very good and clean two-strokes. And then finally, Wesley Conaway says, the people are all complaining and worrying about the radiation from Japan. Then they go to the tanning salon. And I laughed my head off when I read that one. Don't forget to join us for Autoline After Hours tomorrow night when our guest will be Ken Lingenfelter, whose company makes some of the most cool performance mods in the business. Join me and the auto extremist, Peter DeLorenzo, for the best insider information of what's going on in the automotive business. That's tomorrow night on Autoline After Hours. And that's today's report on the top news in the global auto industry. We'll see you tomorrow.